Hey, and welcome back to another episode. I just wanted to take a brief moment and say thank you. Thank you to all of the new listeners out there and the new subscribers. I really appreciate you listening and following. And to everybody who has listened and followed in the past, I really appreciate you too, and sharing the show and getting the show out there so that we can build better leaders, better thinkers in the workforce. And without you, this wouldn't be possible. We just finished the 5th year. We're finishing up the 5th year. We're going into our 6th year, starting in 25. I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that I would be continuously to do this show. And I do it for you. And I do it because you get something out of it. And I appreciate you pushing me and challenging me to do better and be better. So thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. And I don't take it for granted at all. We just finished Thanksgiving, and I've been doing a lot of mini series about counting your blessings and being grateful and being in a gratitude mindset as always. And I don't think I take enough time to say thank you. So I just wanted to take a brief moment to say thank you, because what we're going to be talking about in this episode is critically important as you look to next year.
This is Tim Staten with Tim Stating the Obvious. What is this podcast about? It's simple. You are entitled to great leadership everywhere you go, whether it's to church, whether it's to work, whether it's at your house, you are entitled to great leadership. And so in this podcast, we take leadership principles and theories and turn them into everyday, relatable, and usable advice.
And a quick disclaimer, this show, process, or service by trademark manufacturer, otherwise does not necessarily constitute an implied endorsement of anyone that I employed by or favors them in representation. The views are expressed here in my show are my own expressed and do not necessarily state or reflect those of any employer.
As you look into what we're going to be doing next year and what you're going to be doing next year in your life, it's incredibly important that we pay attention to our words. And words have power. So we can either speak life into our lives, or we can speak curses and spells into our life. And it's up to us to determine what that looks like. I've been thinking about this for a long time, about how to approach this topic, how to approach this subject, so that way it comes across the right way. Because I don't want it to come across as condescending, because I can see how that could happen. But I've been thinking about it a long time, and our own internal monologue has a lot to do with how we perceive the world. And the things we tell ourselves say a lot of the outcome of what we're able to do in our world. The people we're able to reach and the good we're able to do is based on our internal monologue. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the power of words and speaking life into our life instead of curses. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." And so what this is telling us right here is that our words have the power to bring life or death to people and to ourselves based on what we say. And it's incredibly important too, if you think about it. If you think about what you're being told, right, as children, when we grow up, we learn through our subconscious. We take in the world around us. And children that thrive are children that are fed good, positive words. We tell children, hey, you're doing a great job. Hey, this is awesome. Hey, that's awesome. You're so smart. You're such a hard worker. I really love the effort that you're putting into that. You're so adventurous. You're so brave. You're so courageous. Or we tear people down and we say, you're so stupid. What's wrong with you? There must be something wrong with you. Don't do that. Why are you such a bad kid? When we say things like that, we are speaking into existence onto other people's beings, and people turn that into their subconscious mind, and then they internalize that. They start telling themselves those things, and then that becomes who we become, what we tell ourselves and what our thoughts are. And it's even more interesting too that what comes out of our mouth and how we say things is really the overflow of what is in our hearts, what is internally into us, right? And so I'm reminded of this because the Bible tells us that we're supposed to bear fruit, and you will know the tree by its fruit, right? So a pear tree produces pears, a fig tree produces figs, an apple tree produces apples, and a grapevine produces grapes, and a tomato plant makes tomatoes. And how do we know what the fruit is, right? So we know what it looks like, but we also know it by the taste. We know what grapes and apples taste like. They're very distinct and they're very different. But in order to get the flavor of it, you put it under pressure and you squeeze it. And that's where the juice comes out. And that is much like our lives and our tongues and what we say. And oftentimes in the environment that we're in the world that we're in, we're constantly under pressure. We're constantly being compressed and to do more with less and constantly get more and be more. And how do we figure this thing called life out? And how do we get other people to do things that we need them to do? And your bosses are demanding stuff. Your family is demanding stuff. Your extracurricular activities are demanding stuff. Everyone's demanding something from you and putting pressure on you. And they're squeezing you. And what comes out through your words, is it bitter? Or is it sweet fruit that comes out? Is it gratitude and appreciation? Or is it anger and hate? Is it frustration that comes out when you're squeezed? So we need to choose our words carefully. We need to choose them carefully because the words that we talk about, they have the ability to create a life for ourselves and other people around us. And I say that because in Genesis 1, right, God spoke the world into existence. And he created man in his image. And part of that is to create. So we are creative beings. And everything starts with a thought. And everything starts with an idea. And it comes out into a verbal world. It comes out in the verbal form of communication. Whatever that may be, it comes out. And so when we think about our words, we need to think about, are we building life or are we creating curses? And that is a very powerful thought. Invoking thought again. If you need to rewind this and go back, go ahead and do that. Our words have so much meaning that we don't fully understand the meaning of those words. And so lately, I actually have been looking up the root word, the etymology, I believe that's what it is, of the word. What is the root of the words that we say when we say them? And they don't necessarily mean the meanings that we've assigned to them. They have a much different and more deeper meaning than what we assign to them today. They have been shallowed over the years. And I was also listening to some tapes and reading some books, and over the years, our speech has gotten less and less formal, less and less optimistic, and more pessimistic, more and more profane, more and more less elevated in our speech. And I am guilty of this too. So I'm pointing the finger at myself when I say this, but I also think it's important, when we are in our house, when we're at work, or we're even in the places of worship that we go to, are we giving words of encouragement? Are we giving words of growth? Are we giving words of life into people? And I just read a book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And one of the things that really caught me by surprise in the book, and I forget the name and I forget the whole situation, other than it was a father whose kid was born deaf. And he refused to accept the fact that his kid was born deaf. And he was like, my son is going to be able to hear, and we're going to figure out how he can hear. And by the sheer persistence of being able to speak life into this child, speaking that, hey, your deficiency is really a benefit, and here's how this is beneficial for you, and here's how you're going to get ahead, and here's how you're going to be better because you're different than other people, because you have something special about you that nobody else has. Where other people see this as a deficiency, this is really an opportunity of growth and excellence that nobody else can see. And it was that sheer determination from the father, who he convinced the son, that the son's like, yeah, I'm going to be able to hear too, and I'm going to make things great. Which then he later on and grew up, and he started listening to, he actually got like one hearing aid, and it like revolutionized the hearing community. And he became like the salesperson for it and the spokesperson for it. And because of his determination that was passed on to him from his dad, he was able to then go out and help other people hear who might not have been able to hear. Which is an amazing story. But that dad spoke life into his son, and his son took that life and spoke life into other people, increasing everybody else's life. I just found that incredibly amazing, incredibly awesome. And so it really honed in on this point right here of how words are powerful and important. Just as negative words can destroy and put doubt and fear into your mind. And in my opinion, doubt and fear are the biggest destroyers of yourself. And if you're a leader, and if you're thinking about being a leader, or if you're young and you're kind of growing up and you're saying, yeah, one day I want to be a leader, doubt and fear are going to be your two biggest enemies. They will creep up on you and they will be buried into your subconscious and into your brain. And you're going to have to spend a lifetime overcoming these two doubts and fears. You're going to have to overcome that. You're going to have to put away the criticisms. You're going to have to put away the pessimistic outlooks. You're going to have to live above that and figure out how to not let that affect you. And one of the ways is to know that you are beautifully and wonderfully created. And because you're beautifully and wonderfully created, there's nothing wrong with you. If someone doesn't like you, that's a them problem, not a you problem. So we need to be very careful about the words that we speak into our lives and into other people's lives, because that turn into thoughts, which then turns into our subconscious. So we have to constantly be filling our subconscious with positive thoughts and attributes and not the negative ones, because you're going to be bombarded with negativity no matter what. But the positivity, the positive comments, the positive thoughts, the giving life encouragement and speaking into your own life and to other people's lives is where it's really going to come into play. And when we talk negatively, right, now this is where we talk into the curses of the people's lives. And I'm going to tell you, negative self-talk and gossip and careless words can act over the biggest curses on yourself and other people, right? And so James, in the book of James, chapter 3, 6 through 10, he says, the tongue is described as a fire capable of setting one's life ablaze. And if you think about that, think about how often we can sabotage other people by gossiping, by saying negative things about other people. How often are you maybe guilty of even overhearing conversations about people at the water cooler, at the cafeteria, wherever you're at, in the hallway, near your cubicles? Hey, did you hear that Sally kicked her dog? Or, hey, did you know that these two people are having some type of romantic relationship and they shouldn't be having a romantic relationship? Or, hey, did you hear that so-and-so is about ready to get fired, and because the boss hates this person because they screwed up this report? Or maybe we're just jealous of other people and we're like, man, did you see what Bob is wearing today? That tie does not go with those shoes or that suit. Or Susie's purse does not match with what she's wearing, and her hair, did you see her hair? Who did her hair? And then people will gravitate towards that negativity and continuously talk, and it will build and it will build. And other people will overhear this. The overflow of your words will fall under people's ears, and subconsciously they will absorb it. And over a period of time, they may develop a dislike for somebody based on the negativity that they're hearing from other people. But they may not have any clue about where this is coming from, because words have meaning. And we're not speaking life about people. We're speaking curses through gossip. So we need to be careful about what we say and how we say it, because we are equally and opposite in between positivity and negativity. We as people are neutral, and we can tap into a higher, more positive way of thinking and talking, or a negative one. And each one is equally reciprocal. It all depends on what we're going to plug ourselves into. Are we going to stoop ourselves low and talk about other people and gossip, or are we going to rise above and speak positivity and stop the gossip and talk to people when, hey, you shouldn't be talking about other people that way. That's not entirely true. You don't know the facts. Let's not talk about people behind their back. Let's wait till they're in front of us before we talk about them. How many people work with people like that? I guarantee it's not that many. We need more people like that. And we definitely need more leadership like that. So I'm reminded of a phrase by Henry Ford when he said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right in both cases. And that's how speaking is incredibly important, because that shows our frame of thought, our thought process. When you say words like, I can't do this, I'll never be able to accomplish this, this always happens to me, you're bringing and you're speaking that negativity into your life to make sure that it never happens. And subconsciously, when you say those things, you will behave in a way so that those statements become true, and you won't realize it. Absolutely 100% the fact. So we need to make sure that when we say things that we're saying, you know what, I haven't figured this out yet. I might not be that strong at doing this task, but I'm working on doing it. I'm going to get it. I didn't get this promotion yet. I didn't achieve this process yet. Whatever it is. always make sure that you can identify deficiency with being able to overcome it. Because there is nothing that you can't overcome. Because when you put something and you make a qualified statement, like it's just too hard, you then put something over yourself. When in reality, there is nothing that you can't overcome. There's nothing that you can't overdo. You have to change your mindset, your thoughts, and your words. And this is incredibly important too, because I'm gonna take you way back in time when God talked to Moses through the burning bush in Exodus 3:13 through 15, and God reveals himself to him. And he tells Moses that you need to go back to the Israelites, and you need to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses goes, well, who am I to go tell the Pharaoh or the Jewish people that you're to let them go? Like, who am I to do that? And he goes, well, tell them I am who I am sent you. And so I looked it up. I was like, well, what does that really mean? Like, I know that's the English version, but what does the Hebrew version say? So I looked it up, and I looked up the Strong's Concordance, and I was like, man, he's basically saying the essence of the essence, like to be existence, right? The existence sent me to tell you this is what you got to do. And so when I think about that in the form of words and phrases, to be, right? That's a lot of essential things, right? So when we talk and we say, I am, that is part of what you're assigning a thought to God on, whether you mean to or not, because he told us, like, I am who I am. So if you make a mistake and you're like, oh, I am so stupid, you just cast a curse on yourself, and you limited yourself by limiting God by saying I am. You're just saying that God is that adjective that you just described to it, when you're really talking about yourself, and you're diminishing yourself. What you need to say is, if you are going to talk to God on something and you use that phrase, what needs to follow that phrase is something that should apply to him. For example, man, I am loved. I am chosen. I am capable. I am worthy. I can do this. I am capable of this. I am more than qualified for this. I am abundant, right? Those are speaking life into ourselves versus curses on ourselves and diminishing ourselves. We need to stop doing that. And oftentimes people do this starting as children, and they don't realize what they're doing, and parents don't realize that this is what kids are doing, and we need to stop that. We need to say, stop. No, you are a beautifully and wonderfully made human being. God made you the way you are. You may have made a mistake. You may have had a deficiency, but you can work on that. You can overcome that. We can do this. Let me help you do this. Start speaking life into people's lives. So here's a couple of tips that we can do to put this into practical application. How do we do this? Like, I know what you told me, but how do I actually do this? Well, the first thing we can do is don't say anything at all until you ask yourself this question. Does this align with what is in best for what God has for me? The answer is no. Think about it again before you say it. Or, am I going to love my neighbor as I love myself? If the answer is no, don't say it. Find another way to say it so that you would want to receive the message the way you're about ready to give it. The second thing we can do is replace negative phrases or things and sayings like, I can't do this. What you can say is, you could say, Philippians 4:3 says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So yes, I can do this. I may not have found the way yet, but I can do this. And that's why it's important to study the scripture and know the truth, because the reality is we are struggling with things, but we just haven't found the way to do it yet. The third thing we can do is we can speak blessings over ourselves and others. And one thing that I started doing recently is when I wake up in the morning, I think to myself, I didn't wake myself up. God woke me up. That's blessing number one. I open my eyes and I can see. Not everybody can see. People who are born with eyes and they can't see. I can see. That's blessing number two. I can hear the birds outside my window when they're eating the nuts that I have up there. I put bird feed on there, and they're like eating the little seeds and nuts and stuff. And I can hear the birds chirping. I have ears to hear, and God has given me the ability to hear. That's blessing number three. Blessing number four is I have a brain and I have eyesight and I can hear and I can understand language, and I can speak. Well, that's blessing number 4 and 5, right? I've got 2 hands, all my fingers. I got 2 feet. I can walk. I can stand. There's people who don't have all their limbs. There's people who don't have all their fingers. And yet I do, and I can do all those things. Those are all blessings. They all move. Those are all blessings in my life. So by the time I get done with everything in the morning, I've already have like 100 things to be grateful for that I've already been blessed with before I even get out of the shower and go eat breakfast. What else do I have to be upset about that day? What, I'm going to be upset because I didn't do something adequately enough and prepare and plan to do something and didn't work the way I wanted it to do because I failed to make it happen? It's my fault. I'm not going to be upset about anybody else for that. I take ownership over it. Somebody else comes into work and they're all in a bad mood. What, am I going to sink to their level, or am I going to actively listen to them and hear what they have to say? And then I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Here's what you've been blessed with today, and list those things out for them. And not just like the things I told you about, but, actively listen to what they're saying. I'm like, man, let's say that someone's car broke down and they're struggling, like, oh, my car broke down and I had a flat tire and I had to change it and everything else. So you could be like, man, that does sound like a rough morning, but I'm glad you know how to change a tire. Not everyone knows how to change a tire. Who taught you how to change Who taught you how to change a tire? And they'll probably say, oh, well, my dad or my mom or my grandmother or my uncle, they taught me how to change a tire. Oh, well, that's awesome that they took the time to invest into you to teach you how to change a tire, because now you know how to do that and you were able to get yourself off the side of the road. That's a huge blessing. I know it's horrible that you had to change your tire and it's cold outside, but do you know how many people that don't know how to change your tire and they had to call like AAA or a tow truck or the state police or highway patrolman or somebody to come help them out? But you had the knowledge and somebody took the time and invest into you so that when this moment happened, you were self-sufficient. You were able to take care of it. That's amazing. They might look at you like you're a little strange, but we're speaking life into people instead of stooping down to their level and reaffirming their negativity about that event. What a better world and place, even office space, would it be if we had an interaction like that? Just think about that for a minute. So the 3 things that we can do are pause before we speak and don't say anything at all, and make sure that when we do say something, it goes to loving a neighbor as we would love ourselves and talking to people the way we wanted to be talked to. 2, we need to rephrase negative things into a more positive light that relies on Scripture, and that can help us reframe our thoughts. The 3rd thing that we can do is we can speak blessings over ourselves and others. So as we kind of close this out, I really want you to start thinking about when we go into next year and we start planning things out and we start thinking, what can we do better? What is something that I am going to work on throughout the whole year, not just a New Year's resolution? What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to say we should work on changing our words to change our life. The more positive words you have, the more life you're going to have. The more negative words you have, the more destruction, doubt, and fear you will have in your life, and you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. No matter what you do, you're going to fall short. Also, remember, when we say things like I am, know that the next words out of your mouth, you need to choose very carefully, because you're not just talking about yourself. And I want to leave with this. What blessings have you encountered in the last week, 2 weeks, month, or year? Let me know. Whether you want to leave it as a comment or a description or whatever you want to leave it as, just let me know. Share your blessings with other people so we can encourage other people to know that we can do this. That yes, it's going to be hard, but we can do this. So what were your blessings this week? Or what were your blessings today? I'm really interested in hearing about it, and I know other people are too. So comment and let us know. Lastly, I just want to leave with this last thought in mind. Your words have power, so use them wisely. As always, thank you for stopping by and listening to this episode. I really hope that you enjoyed it and you got something out of it. Before we go, if I could ask a favor of you, if I can, if you could please share this episode with 1 or 2 people who you think might like it. And if you haven't followed or subscribed or hit all the bells and whistles, please do that. So that way you know when we release another episode. I don't want to waste your time. If you got some value out of this episode, please leave a review or comment so other people can find it by searching things and Your contribution to the show really helps other people find it and find content that are similar to this, so that way they can get value in their lives. Again, thanks for stopping by. I'm Tim Staten.